Hello, this is Jim Anderson. We're back with another episode of Libertarian Uncensored podcast. Let's get right into it. First, we have John Eastman Comes Clean. Hell yes, we were trying to refer the government from TalkingPointsMemo.com. And that's by Chi-Town, 20. And I think they were trying to, they did kind of have a plot to take over the government. But the United States does tons of government coups in other countries. No one really cares, and they don't demand accountability for those. So my logic is, they want accountability for Trump. I want accountability for Trump too, but they don't want accountability for everyone else. And I think we need to hold everyone accountable and not just signal out Trump, because they're all pretty much interchangeable. That's why I call them all the current recent presidents the interchangeable neoliberals. Everyone since at least Reagan, I would say. And, that's why I think we gotta hold them all accountable and not just Trump. So that's my thought there. Then we have the corporate press is factual but not truthful. Quote from Michael, and that's a quote from Michael Mouse, and that's a cross from local political memes of what's the original post title? I forgot. Least liberal propaganda. And it's propaganda on the left side of the political compass, and the Wojak with his mouth wide open. U.S. Sound of Freedom funder Fabian Marta arrested for child kidnapping, and then on the right side it's the brown Chad Wojak who says this is reality. One, he donates $500 on GoFundMe and was one of 6,600 donors. 2, he was charged by accessory to child kidnapping because he rented an apartment to a biological mother who took her own child who she was in a custody battle with the legal parents. And I said, I don't know if I replied to this one. But it is good to say that it is good proof that the media does have an agenda, and they have very good when it comes to framing and spinning things their way, and they can make anything into headline if they can frame it and spin it well enough. That's my thoughts here. The free market myth that justified history's greatest heist from TheIntercept.com by Paton13. And that looks interesting. I don't really care too much for the free market. I think right now we have more of a corporatist market than a free market. And let's see, recent book details out the top 10% till 47%, a trillion via intellectual welfare. Yeah, I would be against things like I think I would be against things like intellectual copyright and all that, because I think the people, if you can't physically protect something, I don't think you should be able to protect it, because the physical is very much the form of our lives, but the mental form is increasingly taking shape with the internet as well. And I think that's why we should have we need more of a remix culture, something like Lawrence Lessig says. My cousin's really big into Lawrence Lessig. He's more of a Democrat, but I do agree with him that we need less intellectual copyright laws, and that's one of the big things. I think that's what that they use, that the 10% is stealing from the bottom of people. Then we have, I hope this isn't a real world economic forum clip, H3 at Kurt Metzger. The computer monitors your brain waves, sending data to the boss and to the cops, and punishes you for wrong thoughts. The WEF conclusion, we already have this technology, so get used to it. From Michael Mouse on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, scary stuff. You can already get terminated from your job if you post or like the wrong thing on social media. Now it might extend to having the wrong faults as well. And the technology that the elites at the WF have access to might be much more advanced than what we know of. They probably only give us the table scraps. So I think this might come sooner rather than later for all we know, but we'll have to see what happens. I don't really trust WF, and I think, soon they'll be able to check to tell us we're doing the wrong thing or not, and that won't be good. It'll be like 1984. Then we have a tweet I made, progressives. The problem with most of the Nazis is that they were just following orders without thinking about them. Now do what the government and media say or else. And I tweeted that, and I posted it as well. And that was my reply to another guy, Rona, who said, what did he say? At Wi-Fi Pioneers, Covidians still brag about doing what we were supposed to do, i.e. what they were told to do. I was doing a reply to Michael Mouse. Coach told you that vast number of people want it to be easier for them to be obedient, not harder. And I said, it's funny how progressives were all about resist, but then all of a sudden it became obey without question. Probably why they would love a social credit system if they were marketed the right way, as Michael Mouse notes here. He quoted my tweet, my response about that as well, so that was nice, or quote extra. I can still call it quotated, but I call it whatever you want. I'm libertarian. The thing is that it's always like, oh, you can't just follow orders, but then the people, it's people hate it for it was all about resist authority, but then all of a sudden the 40 they agreed with came to power, and then there was resist authority just went like whoop like that, it was gone. And that's why I think, I do think it's good that people are increasingly seeing authority as illegitimate when they disagree with it, but the sad thing is that people still view authority as legitimate when they agree with it. And that's something I think we need to work on changing. Because, we need to view authority as illegitimate even if we agree with it, because society is even when you like authority, it doesn't mean it suddenly becomes good authority. You can't justify good authoritarianism. It's war authoritarianism and stuff like that. You can't justify good authoritarianism. If you or I were to kill a single individual, it's called capital murder. When a president kills millions of people overseas, it's just foreign policy. From LP National on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, pirates and emperors at its finest. It's when the individual can't do anything, but when the state can do it, it'll be completely fine. Especially when it comes to like bombing the Middle East, killing people without due process, torturing people, stuff like that. And then it's Then we have new anti-crypto movement escalates Congress's assault on privacy, and from Room My Circles work, and that's a link to cato.org. And not sure. So yeah, I definitely would agree. I think Congress doesn't really care about privacy at all, and you increasingly see that with how they don't care about the Fourth Amendment or pretty much any of the amendments in the Bill of Rights, and that's how they can just do whatever they want to you and get away with it. Like as we were just saying, if you spied on people without their consent, you'd go to jail, but they can do it. It's 100% fine. So that's life for you. It's all double standards and kind of bullshit like that. Texas power prices to surge 800% on Sunday amid searing heat from FinanceIO.com by geeky username, and they had me blocked, so I couldn't reply to this one. But I would say yeah, I think this is kind of media hype, but I do think that the environment can be hard sometimes. Sometimes that will cause prices to surge, and that's life because sometimes resources can be harder to obtain than other times, and that's just how life is. We impeach people for violating the public trust, for political misconduct or serious incompetence. We reject them. We vote them out. We never again elect them. We don't imprison them. From Justin Amash on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, can't wait to see the subreddit turn on. Amash, you can't say anything that seems mildly offensive to Trump these days without the progressives coming after you for it. If they had their way, anyone who has ever said anything they deemed to be wrong would be imprisoned. Don't be surprised when the shoe is on the other foot, and this legalese is used against progressives and members of other political groups like them. It's just this will be used against the other side. You're opening. I think Amash is pretty much warning. You don't want to open Pandora's box here, and using legal system to go after political opposition. You could use legal system to go after a lot of people, a lot of stuff like that. Like Amash specifically notes. Have been invited for going to war without conditional approval, spying on Americans in violation of the Fourth Amendment, using emergency declarations to bypass checks and balances, or ignoring legal advisors to pursue a clearly unlawful policy. There's tons of stuff you get for the former presidents on, but they only seem to ever care about getting Trump. So that's something that I think is important to remember. It's much more of an agenda thing than anything else, I would say. The thing is that I don't like Trump. I would love more than anything to put on the MAGA hat and call Trump my political daddy, but I know he isn't on my side just like the rest of them. But the thing is that, they're going after him and they're not going after the everyone. So I think they need to go after all of them, and that's something I think they should do. If they if they were to go after the rest of them for other reasons, I think that would be seen as being a bit more fair than what they're doing right now. And that's why I think we need to go after all of them. If Trump goes to prison, I don't really care because in the end, I don't think he's going to prison. We're still giving him his house arrest probably, but I don't really care about him because in the end, he's just another shill grifter, liar, and hack. But they all are, and yet they only ever seem to go after him. So that's something that's important to remember. Then we have Inside an Abusive Anti-Porn Camp for Teens from Reason.com. And yeah, it looks interesting. I don't think I guess you could make the argument that I do think porn's bad for kids, but I don't think we should be sending kids into the wilderness. I guess maybe sending kids in the wilderness would be good for their survival. I think as long as it's consensual, this camp could be good. If it's consensual, I think it's good. But I think we shouldn't be doing stuff like this to kids without their consent, sending them into the wilderness. Although wilderness survival is a good skill to have that I think people are losing these days. Next we have Trump Pardon War Criminal Clinton Lawrence Tries to Become a Lawyer from TheIntercept.com by Patan Fertain. And there, I didn't reply to that one. That's the thing is, yeah, I don't think that's, they all, it just seems like an average, murder of innocent civilians in Afghanistan. Yeah, that's a lot of troops for the troops are just kind of. I like the troops. I like troops personally. I like their service. I like people who serve because I think it's something to be that requires years off your life. That's why I think every job deserves some respect to some extent. I would say even jobs I don't care for, like politician or the police officer. But stuff like the police officers, the politicians, and the soldiers, they're all the errand boys for the state, and that's important to remember as well. So I think Clint Lawrence here is. I don't really care too much about this, but yeah, I think he's supposed to be a lawyer. He should be a lawyer, but I don't trust him as a lawyer either because he's already shown he can murder innocent civilians and get away with it because that's the narrative will be on his side because he's a soldier, I would say, or I don't know. Former NYPD union leader gets 2 years in prison for this theft scheme from CNN.com by Patan Fertain. And I said that Patan Fertain said, "Oof, crooked offers police union. What's the bad guy here?" I said they are all crooked. They are all simply errand boys for the state. I do think it's interesting how the left end support unions, but it's only turn on them in moments like this when the narrative says to do so. And then Frosty Slawman asked, "What's the narrative?" I said the narrative is the agenda that the government and the media want people to follow. And that's something that's important to remember. We live in an age where, frankly, the narrative is the new god, and people need to follow it, or they'll be risk being ostracized and forced out of some people's groups, and that's important to remember. So, I think that. And a lot of what that's why social media I think is so toxic. It's just a bunch of people who want to be reassured and circle jerked all the time, and that's something that it doesn't make for a good thing, especially when it's all the people who want their narratives to be followed all the time, regardless of anything else. And yeah, so let's move on to the next one. How many people does economic regulation kill? By Ruin My Circle Jerk. That's the one. Everyone. That's from WordPress. What WordPress? International Library WordPress, Daniel J. Mitchell WordPress. Wonder if, let's see. So, yeah, I doubt people are not really for it for broad support. Yeah, I do think regulation scale, but that's I'm just one personally against regulation. But the thing for regulation is you have to determine. Regulation kills, but non-regulation kills too. So the thing is, life is inherently deadly. I think I personally more against regulations, but if you have the force to maintain regulations, I guess you can make the argument that you could do so. But the thing is that. That's just make it harder for small businesses to succeed. And that's why I don't really care for them. Regulations, I mean. Reports that House Dems are advocating for televised Trump trials, a call for openness and transparency. Staff them watching a public law press, or just we'll get your opinion. And so the options were, this is by Chi-Town 20, and the options were, let's see what the options were. 20 voted for open televised broadcast trial, 3 for closed trial, 5 for audio broadcast trial. And I said, I don't support censorship, and I think the trial should be open. I think most people would agree. The Dems would like to use the trials as media propaganda, like the J6 hearing from last year, and the Republicans would want them televised to show how persecuted Trump is. Next, we have NSFW. What do you think the libertarian position is here? Expose /r/ same people Facebook, and that was a story about how some guy, my father masturbates for silently disabled son, and I said, I personally find it a little bit freaky, but I would say that the liberating position is that as long as it's consensual and the disabled son is of age, it's not an act violation, though I do think you can make a disabled people can consent argument as well, though as someone physically myself, I will personally disagree with it. Most people seem fine with consent when it's things about things they're okay with, but suddenly aren't when it's things they aren't okay with. That's important to remember. This is something I found weird and freaky, but I think, as long as he's of age and as long as, it's consensual, I think it's okay. So that's my thought there. I also do think our society has been a little too open about sexuality personally, but, that's something that's important to remember as well, because, I think if I was fire, I probably wouldn't have shared this, probably keep this to myself, but everyone has to be very open about sexuality these days, it seems. Then we have why the U.S. hasn't declared a coup in Nigeria for reason, and I posted that. And I said, remember, the government and the media will never label it as a coup when the U.S. is backing it. See Ukraine, Syria, Libya, Grenada, Yugoslavia, Somalia, Iran, Iraq, etc. It's funny how a lot of the people who get the most upset about how Trump tried to overthrow the U.S. government suddenly don't care about overthrowing the governments of foreign countries. Then we have the politicians are often interchangeable. The system is the issue. From Michael Mouse on Twitter, and I posted that. And I said, the problem to me is that we have a centralized system at all. And Chi-Town said, oh, that's capitalism. I would say, you should be able to practice capitalism if you feel like it, but you should be able to practice anything else as well. That's my fault, Who, as long as you aren't forced, that is. Because there are some communities that are more kind of ANCOM. Like I think there's one in Virginia, Acorn. So that's alright. See, and that's important to remember. Like U.S. is all capitalist. There are areas of U.S. that aren't capitalist, and that's important to remember. Then we have Ron DeSantis is a neocon who promises to hunt down third world countries that are hotbeds of anti-Semitism. How do we stop trying to police the world against phony threats instead? From LP National on Twitter, and I posted that. And I said, just another pretext for foreign interventionism. It's WMD's 2.0. Also agree that DeSantis is a neocon. he is a neocon. He was praising Paul Ryan's Republican gold standard a decade or so ago, and is just trying to ride the anti-woke wave for political engagement reasons. So he'll just get us into more wars, more Libya's, Grenada's, Syria's, etc. And that one that's never gonna end. Then we have Joe Rogan. Michael Mouse explains the NPC meme from Jerry Clips, and I said, I fucking love the NPC meme. Easily my favorite meme of all time. I love how Mouse even notes some people on the left who aren't NPCs in video, like Michael Tracy, Glimmer, and Jimmy Dore. Sadly, when it comes to Reddit, this website seems to be the NPC capital of the world. And yeah, so also when you constantly call people, I like how the left says, "Oh, the NPC means dehumanizing." When they constantly call people Nazis, fascists, biggest white supremacists, QAnon, Hitler, etc., you don't get to say something's dehumanizing or FBI in that case because you do a ton of dehumanizing, but when suddenly someone does something that you consider dehumanizing, you suddenly get super preachy about. That just goes to show you that most people only have double standards. And finally, we have Backpage publisher, alt weekly entrepreneur, and free speech warrior James Larkin has died from Reason.com. My Ninja Lover, and I said, sad, he and Ross Rubrick shouldn't have faced jail time for running a website. He's just Larkin was just about to go on trial for Backpage stuff, and Ross Ulbricht's been in prison for like 10 years now. So I think they both shouldn't have gone to jail for running a website, and they both should still be free to this day, but that's not what the government thinks, and that's ultimately matters, sadly, in this world, what the government thinks, not what the people think. And I think we're going to wrap up there, and I'll see you guys next episode. Bye.